A Retro Ramble with.
This week's special guest is a really good friend who ironically I met through YouTube, but more about that later. He has an awesome collection of consoles and computers, but he's also partial to buying unique items on eBay, such as a full-size Terminator 2 body, including Red Light Pies, a 5-foot Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and a GTI arcade club seat. It gives me great pleasure to chat to Andy, iStreamVan.
Into your Stalkerville, make it a bit more stalkery than it already is. We'll talk about that later.
We're going to the next level.
Yeah, that'll be a story for later, I think.
Yeah. So obviously, I know your background, but what first got you into the computer scene? Then, what was your first computer?
Well, it was dead weird because I think about this, and it's something I never sort of asked for or bought into. It's just, yeah, I mean, you know the story. My dad came home one day with a ZX Spectrum, and then all of a sudden we've got a home computer. It's quite interesting. I mean, I knew about computers already because obviously we had the old school ones at school, but then obviously the Spectrum came along, and then we had sort of home gaming, and we had arcade ports and things like that. So that's where it all started. I don't think I really asked for a computer. Dad just came home and thought, family computer now, you know, just like that Hey Hey 16K song. So come home and can do his accounts and that. So there it was. Then we started getting the entry level games like Horace Goes Skiing and all those, Checkered Flag, and as it escalated to bigger titles like the Dizzy games and arcade ports, then that's when you start getting addicted to it, and then you progress as gaming progresses, and you get the next console, the next computer or whatever, and play the better versions of games that you already owned. I think that's where it all started for me, really, and quite good memories of that as well. And Spectrum has quite a nice place for me. It's quite a humble computer, and a lot of the games were designed in bedrooms, and the soundtracks were done by the same people who did the graphics, the programming. It's nice when you hold that cassette and you've got all that love and attention in that game. It's not like a massive production. It's just somebody had an idea, it evolved, and they got a really good game out of it. And I like to look at my collection sometimes and see those sort of titles. It's a really good sort of passionate time in gaming, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I've talked to a lot of people I've talked to, that in them days, the thing that got people's attention was the cover art on the game. If you saw a good one, you would automatically go and have a look at it, no matter what the game was like.
See, that was a big thing for me as well, especially when it progressed into the Atari ST and the Amiga games. You get the cardboard boxes. Nothing's all the same size like you get these days. It looked horrible on the shelf, having different size games, boxes, mini ones, large ones, just ones big enough to put a disc in. So look at the artwork. It was handcrafted stuff. There's no CGI, there's no generated stuff. It was just genuine artwork. If you look at like Psygnosis games on the Amiga, you can just see the detail and the time that they've put into those games. It's incredible. I know there's still a talent these days, and we're going backwards again with the retro sort of revived sort of genre. But when you look at those Amiga and ST 16-bit classics, the artwork, the loading screens, the intro music, everything, it's just a good package, and that's what I really sort of draw into when I'm playing retro games.
It's like you say, it's an all-in-one. It can encompass everything, doesn't it? It's not just one thing.
And the thing is, as well, you get a nice surprise sometimes. You get like a little loading screen or a bit of music you weren't expecting. But these days, I love modern gaming, and I play a lot on the Xbox. But you get that little surprise when it's 16-bit and the older systems, something they've really pushed or really thought about what they were doing. It's really interesting when that sort of happens. You get that wow factor. I mean, a good example is the first time I played Lost Patrol on the Amiga. You get a little cut shot, and it might just be like 5 or 6 frames of animation, but in your mind, when you're that age, you think, oh, it's dead smooth. It's like watching telly and stuff. You watch it back now, it's terrible, but that's what it was. It's like, wow, look at this, and this is part of my game. Yeah. And obviously, that was before the CD-ROM took off, and we were blessed with lots of lovely cutscenes and CD quality music. But like I say, it's evolution. I think we were born in a really good time to sort of embrace the way gaming's evolved. And I don't think anyone else will ever get that. I don't think it'll ever happen again. Not unless something new comes along that we have no idea about. I mean, as you know, Dave, I'm into VR quite a lot.
Really?
And that, yeah. And that impresses me when I see there's quite a lot of indie titles out there because there's not massive development houses doing VR stuff, and it's quite similar. They think outside the box and try and draw you in that little bit more. So I relate that to the 16-bit and the 8-bit stuff. I mean, we've looked at a lot of specky stuff, and Spectrum's been renowned for gameplay more than graphics, and I think they put so much effort into make the games play really well. They don't look great, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter at all. Honestly, they play really well. So
it's funny that you have the same memories as me. I know we talk about it a lot about that Turbo Esprit one with just the indicators, because you could indicate.
Yeah.
And everybody remembers that indication bit.
And it's funny because even now, when we played Grand Theft Auto 5, sometimes when you're bored of racing around and killing people, you do actually drive around like a real car and stop at the traffic lights and stuff. And that's pretty much what we were doing in the sort of mid-80s to late 80s with that game. And you put your indicator on, and then you turn around, and then you hit the guy on the ladder, and then you see the car coming, and you go and chase it. But yeah, that was a really good game. And I didn't know anything about that game when I bought it. I can remember looking at the graphics, and the artwork on the front was all hand-drawn, hand-painted of the Lotus. Looked at the graphics, I thought, this looks like quite good. It's a combination of 3D or whatever, because it was. The buildings were 3D. And then that game was amazing, just on a cassette. And then a lot of people say that's what brought into the whole Grand Theft Auto and those sort of games, because they laid the path basically for that, and that game's great. I've got it somewhere.
It was supposed to be the first open world, if you like, to a degree.
It was almost sandbox, wasn't it? Yeah, not quite a sandbox, but it was genuinely. You can just go anywhere on the map, and you have your target car, and you've got to get to. Yeah. But it's a really good game.
Definitely, it just fascinates me that everybody has that same memory as well. So obviously, it must have stood out at the time.
Yeah, but there was no hype around that game, was there? It was just there, and people sort of talk about it. So it's such a strange thing.
Do you I don't know if you disagree, but I don't think people in 25 to 30 years' time will be saying, on Call of Duty 6, can you remember that bit where... Because they're just very, very similar. They're just slightly different.
It's so unfortunate. I mean, like I say, I am a big modern gamer, and I do love when new titles come out, and we have done the leap to 4K gaming now, which has made a massive difference visually. But it's going to hit that plateau eventually where we need something a bit more. Like I say, we draw into VR, but the technology is not quite there yet with the resolution and the field of view. But you're right. I mean, when we first got involved with gaming when it was 8-bit, and with yourself with old school PC gaming as well, when the graphics cards started coming out, that's when we saw the momentum, and we're just next generation consoles coming out. Amazing. Next generation, amazing. Look at this. It's amazing. It's similar with iPhones. It went from the iPhone 3 to the 4, which was like HD, and it was stunning. And then the 5 came out, and then the 6 had the bigger screen. But now that's plateaued. It's exactly the same. Technology is expected to do that because you can only get to a certain level unless you involve a new sort of input or output device, if you know what I mean. A new sort of, like they've got the haptic suits or whatever they're called on VR, where you get that extra feeling experience and things like that. That's where they're going to have to go. It's similar to arcades as well. They had to stop getting gimmicky with the dancing and all those sort of things because it reached the end of the platformers and the 3D stuff, really. People weren't interested because they could go home and play it at equal quality.
Yeah, that's exactly how the Wii sold so well, because it had its gimmick that you could actually do something with, even though...
That sort of broke the mould, that did, the Wii did. When the Wii came out and you could stand in front of your telly and do your Wii Fit and your dancing and stuff, that just blew everything out. And it was affordable as well, and everyone could set it up. It wasn't something you needed a crazy sort of PC or whatever. You could just set it up, and then you went away. And then obviously the Kinects came out and other things on the PlayStation as well. But that's what they need to look at now with modern gaming. But like going back to your first question, it's just so nice to be able to be alive during each one of those sections and be able to talk about it, and obviously draw your fond memories. Because for me, it was the Amiga and the 16-bit stuff, and getting all them sampled sounds. The music was amazing. The sounds were amazing on the Amiga. It was just really polished. And it's such a shame it never evolved any further from that, for me, the Amiga. It just kind of hit that dead end. It couldn't keep up with likes of your PlayStation. The 3DO came out. It ran circles around the CD32 because we all knew that 3D gaming was going to be the way forward. It was an obvious obviously, when Doom came out way back, we knew that was going to happen. It wasn't about 2D nice artwork sideways platforms anymore. It's about immersion. But then on the other side of that, we're going backwards now with all these indie games. It's got the nice artwork again. I mean, this new Streets of Rage game that came out, that looks stunning.
Yeah. Do you think, though, that sometimes... I do like the Streets of Rage game, the new one, but I also like the old one. I don't know what it is, but sometimes when it's too crisp, it almost detracts.
It almost... It's like HD sort of Java game or something.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I mean, we keep playing the original Golden Axe and just looking at the pixel artwork of it. Because it does look quite generated, the new Streets of Rage game. It does embrace the feel of the game, and it looks really nice, but it just looks a bit too artificial, I think, for the people that are die-hard pixel gaming, I think. But it's a nice homage, if you like, to the originals and brought it to modern gaming, sorry. But like I say, I don't know, you just can't beat the old school pixelated stuff.
I think it's probably because they've got to almost satisfy both sides of the fence. They've got to satisfy us, a lot who are into old 16-bit graphics, but there's a new audience as well that they've got to satisfy, and they expect this type of stuff.
And that's a nice thing, though, because it sort of passes the baton on a little bit, and you might get these young developers that are really into that type of gaming. But yeah, you sort of wonder when it's going to come to its end, though. I mean, is it just retro's in at the moment? We know that prices of old consoles and handhelds have gone absolutely insane. But that bubble's got to burst one day, and that generation will move away eventually, and we won't have that anymore. And you sort of wonder what it's worth, if you know what I mean. It's worth a lot to me because it represents my progression through gaming. But there will be that one day where it's just irrelevant. It'll be in a museum somewhere.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It is as well that I know there's a lot of debate about what actually is retro and what isn't, but everything at some point will become retro. It's just the way life is.
It's an interesting argument about that, because the purists say that retro should stop at a lot of people say that if it's got a CD drive it shouldn't be retro, which is quite a valid point, but I don't know, I think there's a bit of arrogance there and what is retro, because something has to be retro at some point. I mean, the Xbox 360 is debatable about whether it's retro or not. In my mind, I think it is, but it had such a long lifespan. It was making games for years. It must have been the longest possession of console I've ever had in my life, and the game's still not there. It seemed to push the boundaries on that one. So it is still quite a close console to now, but then when it first came out, it wasn't, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think with the 360 and the PS2 and PS3, that was the generation where the gap between the next one is in terms of graphics and stuff shortened, if you like. Yeah, you can tell there was a difference, obviously, and the speed of it, but it wasn't that big a leap from the Commodore 64 to the Amiga. That graphic leap, you know what I mean? It's just a small, and I think that's where we've got to. We're almost at a point now where you can see what it's about. It's all about the loading time, which is quite ironic because that goes back to the old school as well.
Exactly, and another interesting point, and we have touched on this before in the past. Obviously, people won't be privy to our conversation. But it's about physically owning a game these days. I went to a shop and specifically wanted to buy the box, thinking I was going to get a disc in it. I didn't. I got a download code. I was so disappointed because I could have just bought it somewhere else. I like to physically own my catalogue. So you think about all these retro fairs that we go to at the moment, buying and selling, got these new games, I've heard about this game, we'll get it. That's going to be a thing of the past. In 5-10 years' time, that's going to be gone. Because we'll not be walking into shops anymore and buying something on a disc. It's just going to be download content. And you can see that in the new releases of the consoles, that they don't even have the drives on anymore.
Yeah.
You won't be able to sit and chuck a DVD in one night and watch a film because everything streams, everything's download. And that's another big stage, I think. And I think that's something we'll reflect on in 10 years' time. We just don't see physical games anymore. And it's nice, but back in the day when you had your catalogue or on a shelf or whatever. I mean, it's different for me now. I've got some of the retro stuff laid out. But when you were a young kid, building your collection, you get to sit back and look at it, and it's nice. And that's, for me, is quite tragic. I'm not against download content, but I wish you could have the option to do both.
Yeah, it's true. I think it's happening across the board as well. It's not just games. It's like you say, it's TV, it's music.
Cinema. People aren't going to go to the cinema. You get releases now on Sky that come out at the same time as the cinema. I know we're going through a tough time with COVID, and it makes sense, but people won't have that experience of smelling popcorn and getting ripped off for a £5 glass of Coke or whatever. But that's memories that I'll always have, and it's something that possibly won't get passed down. But we're changing. Maybe we're the old farts. I don't know.
No, I think you're right.
Sorry.
So I was going to say, I think we were. The issue is we were born, like you say, at a time when none of this existed. So we've lived through the progress of the computers, the progress of the internet, and all that kind of. Even down to the stuff like the SpaceX that's landing on its own now. But if you're born today, you will take that as well. It's just normal for a spaceship to land on its own.
You sort of brought it home a few years back. You made a point saying that when your daughter was born, she'd always had the internet.
Yeah.
But for me, that is a crazy statement, but it's true. We had to actually go and look things up. You can't. Now with Alexa, we just Alexa. Oh.
Yeah, best not do
it. You know what I mean? Though you could ask that question.
Yeah.
Like my son asked quite a few quite decent questions, and I said, just ask away. You'll find the answers.
Which is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing that you can get that knowledge straight away, which will give him the knowledge he wants, but it takes away that challenge of having to go and find it, if you like, for yourself.
I can remember, this is a story, my dad didn't know a lyric to a Simon and Garfunkel song. He says, I don't know what that word is, there and that. So I went straight on my phone in front of him, because this is before he dragged himself into modern tech, and I read him the line, and he was dead disappointed, because it wasn't what he thought it was going to be. And I felt bad, because there you go, Dad, I'll work it out for you. I'll tell you what that lyric is on that Simon and Garfunkel song. It was like, no, I'm really disappointed. I didn't even think it was going to be that.
He didn't like the song. Yeah, it's definitely do you think it's to do with, though, life is so fast now that we need everything there and then? We haven't got the time to do anything else. I
think the pace of workplace, gaming, social media, I think everything's just got that, like you said, it's snowballed into that momentum where everything needs to be happening now. Food, go on your app, order your food. Go on your app, order your food from McDonald's, drive into the car park, they know you're there, they come out and pass it to you. It's just the way that we've gone. It's not a bad thing, it's efficiencies. It's like being lean, if you like, in the business.
Yeah.
Well, back in the day, you had to walk to a phone box to make you one phone call a week. And those days are long gone. We used to answer the telephone and say your phone number.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't even know people's phone numbers anymore because everything's on a phone.
Yeah.
It's just mad.
It comes up with a number, doesn't it? It comes up with a name.
It just comes up with a name. So, going back to my original statement, I think myself and yourself, we've lived in a very interesting period of time with technology. I know we had all the moon landings, if that happened, in the 60s and all that stuff. And obviously there was excitement about that. And then I think the whole arms race and all that stuff. But I think regarding entertainment and that whole side of not having to live in those decades where you had brown wallpaper and the excitement was just going out to whack your mates with sticks and stuff. I don't know what it did. But you know what I mean? You could see that progression. As soon as that ZX Spectrum was placed down and my dad put the tape in and pressed play and loaded that first game up, or we sat and did the basic and programmed in some sort of, we had Lander, which was, you had to land a spaceship, but we programmed the graphics. I knew then that we started something really good.
Yeah.
Then obviously through your schooling, the computers obviously evolved through that as well, and it went from the old BBC Micros to the old 2A6 PCs, and you started learning to do spreadsheets and word processing. And I remember the first time I saw the resolution on a PC monitor, I just thought, this is absolutely amazing. The fonts are tiny.
Yeah.
But when you used the Amiga, even the Amiga on the monitor, I thought the gaming looked terrible on an Amiga monitor, by the way. But when you saw it on the monitor, the pixels were still, obviously the resolution was a lot poorer. But the first time I saw it on a PC, I thought, God, it's really crisp.
Yeah. I remember. I always remember seeing it on. It was a PC sort of Amstrad PCW word processor, and it had a green screen. And like you say, it was so clear the letters and the fonts compared to the Amiga. So.
And we didn't realise at the time, but we were getting invited into this progression where resolutions are going to get better. Because in my mind, I didn't think, oh wow, what's it going to be like in 5 years' time? We still went home and watched something on VHS that we've had for years, and you have to put the tracking in and stuff, and we accepted that as the norm. Yeah. But then obviously, I remember the first time I listened to a CD, and just looking at a CD, I thought, this is so futuristic. Yeah. And then listening to the quality, and then when Blu-ray came out, I mean, as you know, I've got quite a big screen in my house, but when you watch something of that resolution, it really is stunning.
Yeah, it blows your mind, I suppose, doesn't it? And it makes you wonder where the future's going.
But like I say, so we managed to witness that period of time through the 80s, 90s, and noughties, where progression did have that sort of momentum. But as you said, I think we're starting to plateau now. It's going to be other things that are going to make things better.
Yeah, and that's where it's going. You can see that with all the developments and stuff in the consoles.
Yeah.
So, did you have an Atari ST as well?
Yeah, I mean, if my brother Craig watches this, that was the sort of it was the option that was available at the time. I think the best thing to say was, because we had a bit of money away. We went round to our friend's house at the time who got the is it Flight of Fantasy that had F-29 Retaliator?
Yeah.
So we had that one Christmas, and we were still at the stage where we had the Spectrum. I'm sure we were. So we saw Buggy Boy and Rainbow Islands, and it just blew my mind. I knew about Commodore 64s, but I've always been diehard Spectrum. I just dismissed the little commies. And then, obviously, you look at your finances when you're that age. It's not great because you haven't got a job. So we had a bit of saving. Atari ST Discovery Pack, that's what it was called, with Carrier Command.
Yeah,
it was $299, which was a lot of money back then. Especially when you're living with a single mum. Mum, we want this. The Amiga was $399, which was the one with the F-29 Retaliator, and that was just out of budget. So we had the ST for a bit, and it was a roller coaster, I have to say, of emotions when playing it. Especially when your friend 10 houses up is sitting there with his Amiga laughing his head off with his cigarette. I got the Amiga. But it was what it was. We've still got good memories of the ST. I wouldn't buy another one just for nostalgia, because I've got the Amiga, so there'd be no point. It's just, I think what let the ST down a little bit was the sound. It was a bit terrible.
Did you know it was a Spectrum chip?
I knew you were going to say that. We're better in VR, though.
Just get all this phrases in now.
You were proper building up to that quote then, I could tell. You led me up the garden path with that one.
But you can tell listening to it now, when you listen to it and you listen to the...
It's so basic, it's poor, very poor.
Yeah. It's a shame. I gather it's down to cost. That's why they went...
It was £100 cheaper and you could still get your foot in the door, I think that's what it is. You could play similar titles.
Yeah. But I think, again, with the Amiga, what amazed me was the fact that you could do like your art packages and do the photo flicks on D-Paint 3 or the...
Deluxe Paint was amazing. And just to do simple animations, obviously I'm quite arty-farty, and that was just a good outlet for me. I mean, we even had an Amiga in our art class. And obviously, having one at home as well, I could do stuff at home and bring my disc in. And so I mean, I've said to you before, I've replicated sprites like they do with the bead art these days. Replicated sprites on Deluxe Paint just by copying them sprite to sprite. And then all of a sudden, you've got a Neo Geo character on your screen. Yeah. Obviously, the colours were a bit more limited on Deluxe Paint 3. Yeah. But yeah, it was just nice. It was a nice bit of kit to have at home, I think, is probably the best way. And I got it was called Imagine. It was a 3D program that generated stuff, and it obviously on an Amiga 500 the processing was really slow, so I used to set up all the sculptures, if you like, with the textures, and then render it overnight while I was asleep, wake up in the morning to go to school, turn the Amiga, the Amiga was already on, turn the TV on to look at what I've rendered. It was like a sea bottom with some metal spheres with reflections and stuff. it just blew my mind that we had that accessible in our homes for that sort of price.
Definitely, yeah. Well, and I think that's what. If you as a parent, you could almost see, it was good for games, but it also had that educational side to it, like say music and art and
And
stuff.
it wasn't forced on you either. It was something that you wanted to get involved with. It wasn't like the BBC Granny's Garden, this is educational, we need to do this. It was like, Mum, I've got this bit of software, watch this. And she'd be like, wow. And I said, look, I've created this, or done this animation, and she'd love it. It really did bring out the sort of creative side of you.
Which I think your pack was the first, same as mine. It was Cartoon Classics, weren't it?
Cartoon Classic. That Bart Simpson game was shocking.
Yeah, I was just about to say though, but can you remember? The game was rubbish, but the intro was amazing.
It was, because it had all the speech and the proper animation. Yeah. And then you just got let down when you got to the game. It was almost like Back to the Future 2. That was another major letdown. I love the Back to the Future franchise, and it was on back order for ages because it got delayed for the release. And every morning, me and my brother used to go to the door to see the postman and deliver it. It never turned up. And then we got it probably 3 months late, put it in, got your intro with a DeLorean flying off, and you got a shocking game of Marty on a hoverboard. What were they doing? Someone at some point said, this is a really good game, let's release it.
Well, you could say that about a lot.
Like Rise of Robots.
Wow, this is amazing, let's release it. You play some, well, we're not mentioning the Atari Jaguar stuff, but...
Or Club Drive.
They must have play tested these games.
They've got to have a department that play test everything and come to the point when they realise it's good to release. Unless they run out of money and they think we've got to get printed or burn it now anyway. So
get it out there.
Yeah,
it's funny. It's interesting. And obviously now you've got quite a big collection of consoles because I know you collect them. So you've got your 3DOs, CD32s. You name it, you've got it probably. Mega Drive, SNES, all them. Which would you
PC
say?
Engine.
PC Engine. Which would you say is the one you cherish the most out of all your ones you own?
So that's quite an interesting question because I'm in a bit of not a dilemma, but in a position where I'm torn between, do I have enough time to get them set up and play them for that nostalgia, or do I just love coming home from work and seeing all my trophies or collections sitting there and knowing that each part I've got a bit sort of I've got a bit of an attachment to, so it's a bit of a strange one. So each one draws a bit of nostalgia backwards and forwards. I mean, I like Neo Geo. My arcade cabinet's got a lot of Neo Geo games on it, and I've also got the Neo Geo CD and the Neo Geo X, which is the handheld version. So I love all that, thinking about going to the arcades on the seaside and putting your extra money in because the Neo Geo arcade machines cost a lot more to play. But then I've got the CD32, which combines the Amiga 1200 and also the Amiga 500 because I've got a lot of 500 titles on a disc that got burnt for me, so I can get my fix on that. But then I've got other stuff as well, like the SNES. The SNES for me, it holds quite a good sort of big sort of part for me because I think that was the first console, because I know that you moved to PC after the Amiga and followed that route, and I got really sort of hooked on console gaming and when titles were coming out from Japan and things like that. So the SNES for me was quite a big turning point. The Mode 7 thing was a big thing for me, and gorgeous graphics and parallax scrolling. It could do everything. It ran circles around the Mega Drive. So I pretty much went from the Amiga to console gaming, but then I had the 3DO, but it never seemed to have that backing and hype at the time. We were popular at school because we owned it, and it was the console to have. But then the PlayStation came out shortly after that. Yeah. But see, it's hard for me. It's I own quite a lot, and a lot of it means a lot to me. So it's quite a hard one to answer. But I think the SNES is a good one for me, and I emulate it on the PS Vita as well, and it's exactly the same. But then I've got a Sega Nomad, which is a handheld version of a Mega Drive with the EverDrive cart in the top. So I've got every title off the Mega Drive, and it's nice not have to set up the Mega Drive and just play it in handheld. So I don't know. This sort of leads into the whole emulation thing, which I know you're really big about. It's about convenience now. I mean, I've got a CRT TV and I can set anything up and get the exact feels I got back in the day. It's the convenience of just being able to play anything you like on any emulation format, and a lot of purists won't like that. But unfortunately, when you've only got half an hour to kill, that's the vice that you go down. But I do love setting up a console for the night with my partner. These are the games I used to play. She used to play them, and we just played two-player stuff on the old CRT.
She thrashes
And you can't beat those moments because I often say to her, "Can you imagine when we were 10 or 11 years old? We never thought we'd be at this age, at this like 2021, playing Ghost Castle 2 on Mario Kart and still doing all the shortcuts and the same moves and remembering how to play it how you used to." It's just nostalgia is quite a dangerous thing, I think.
Costs you a lot.
And I don't. It does cost you a lot of money, but I'm glad I was in a position to purchase what I could, and I've got a job to be able to provide for that. But you get sucked into that nostalgia, and then this leads back to kids like obviously my son's age. Is he going to have nostalgia thinking about Minecraft? Because Minecraft's going to be around forever. It's like Grand Theft Auto, all those games that's going to be around now. It's not going to be something that was a short period of time where you got to play a title and then they brought out a new one, but it was nothing like the old one. It wasn't a new DLC or anything. It was a brand new game. So interesting. We could honestly talk about this all night. And when the pubs open, mate, I think we're going to have to. Like old times. Like that time when you stalked me and turned up at that pub that time because you saw me on YouTube that one time. That you stalked me that one time.
That
just turned up. Yeah, you just turned up and then we couldn't get rid of you.
You know whose fault that is. We all know whose fault that is. Monkeys Past 5,000. If he had to video...
With this video of balls over. Oh. I know that street. Yeah, and then you started tapping on my windows. Let me in. I want to talk retro with you. No, that's where it all started, Dave, so I can't fault you for that.
But it was interesting to meet somebody with the same...
especially in a small town like Bolsover, though, and have that interest. Because literally, we just gasped for about 3 hours straight, didn't we?
Yeah, poor Zad was obviously thinking, "Oh my God, I wish these two would shut up."
Yeah, but it was nice to have that nurture, though, because we are exactly the same when it comes to attitudes and experiences and that. So.
Yeah, definitely got the same history, if you like, almost. But I think a lot of people have of our age. It's a very similar path they all follow. So.
It's funny that, I mean, you just have to go on those Facebook sites and someone puts up a picture of a Mega Drive, and all of a sudden it's got 3,000 comments about what games they used to play on the Mega Drive.
Yeah. Well, it's like the SNES. I bet you can remember Zombie Ate My Neighbours.
I love that game.
Yeah, everybody plays that game. Like you say, Mario Kart, that's another one that everybody plays, Super Mario Land. Or whatever.
I love it. I think the first one's still the best one. There's techniques to play that game, to play it well, and there's no gimmicks about it. You just play it well or you don't play it at all. I just love that game. I still play it now.
You never get nobody come along and say, "Can you remember Rise of the Robots on the SNES?"
No.
No. So, obviously you've got an arcade, excuse me, in the background. Oh, sorry, I'm just have to go, mate. Just be 1 second. I'll come back in a minute.
That's cool. Yeah, no worries. I can see myself in the reflection of Dave's telly. Yoo-hoo! I can see you on my telly. That's not my telly. That's my telly. I'm starting to think Dave set this up on purpose. Am I live on YouTube? Just sitting around. Just thinking about how bad things are at the minute. No one to talk to. Just doing a video conference call with myself. Need a haircut. Barbers are shut. All by myself. Don't wanna be. Hello, Dave.
Go.
Did you record that whole bit?
Yeah, it's not stopped recording.
Oh, you're gonna get lots of funny shit out there. You're gonna enjoy it.
We were talking about arcades, right? Obviously, you've got the arcade in the background, and I know we often jest that if we ever win the lottery, we're going to set up his own free-to-play arcade in a pub with a bed and breakfast and stuff. I
still think about that. You know.
Do you?
Yeah. Sorry, what was the question?
No, sorry. What if you could have any arcade game? What would you have? What game stands out the best for you?
I think you probably know the answer to this one. If I had a standalone arcade machine, which wasn't the one I've got in the background, which plays a lot more, it was dedicated, I'd probably just go for the Outrun stand-up. It's quite compact. Yeah, Outrun stand-up. I just love it. I mean, we went to that... do you remember the arcade show thing you went to with your brother?
Yeah.
Where they just bring all the arcade machines in?
Yeah.
I'm dedicated to playing Outrun.
I saw that because they had pole position there as well, didn't you? You had to go on that as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one. It's nice sitting inside the actual sit-down cab. But I think if I had to choose something that... I mean, I like Sega Rally as well, though. That's the thing.
That's what I thought you'd say. You surprised me.
No,
Sega Rally.
I think the classic Outrun stand-up for me would be a nice trophy piece in the corner.
With all the other races on as well. That'd be really cool.
I can remember playing the first time I played Outrun, though. That's the thing. It was at the service stations at Scotch Corner on the A1, and I asked my mum to put, it was about 50p or 20p, I can't remember what it was, put that in, and just, to me, I was just like, it was the best thing ever, because I was obviously quite young, and then got back home and then ordered it on the Spectrum. Screenshots may vary. It's probably the best way to... it's probably the best way to suggest my disappointment. It's to be honest, on the Spec, it's not a bad game, but you did get an audio cassette with it as well to play, so you could get the arcade music. It's tragic. You got this guy playing his Spec. He's just come from playing the arcade version with the feed for the steering wheel, and then you're sitting in your bedroom with you're waggling your Kempston, if you like.
With your music blaring out on your...
Yeah, on your other tape deck.
But anyway... It was a lot about imagination in them days, weren't it? With games like that.
It was, but... I fell in love with Sega at that point, because Sega and Nintendo are very different sort of companies. Sega, for me, have that sort of edgy, sort of polished sort of side of things, where Nintendo for me are more family friendly.
But you're right what you say, because Mario was more kiddie childy, weren't he? You know what I mean? He was that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it even reflects a little bit more how Nintendo have progressed to like today. They've still got that, what's the family console to get? Nintendo Switch.
Yeah. I
know Sega haven't got anything out there at the moment, but families with young kids would get a Switch more than an Xbox or a PlayStation. I think that's where they own that sort of part of the market.
The thing I don't like about Nintendo, and this is controversial, I just wish they'd have a bit more,
there we go.
A bit more originality, because I think there comes a point where, as graphics get this very similar, releasing like Mario 8 and then Mario 9 or whatever, they're going to be very similar. Even the tracks rejigged from old versions, just made a bit more spruced up.
Oh, Mario Kart, you mean?
Yeah, Mario Kart. Even though it's a good game, don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
at some point it's gonna run out. It's got to run out, hasn't it? They've got to think of different things.
Yeah, it's a bit like FIFA and those sort of things. They're just rehashing a brand and keep going. Are people going to get bored of it? I don't know, but like I say, it's nice when you start it at the start with the first Mario Kart and the SNES, but I don't get involved with the newer versions of the games. I think the most modern one I've played would be, is it on the GameCube, Double Dash?
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most modern one I've played. Didn't enjoy it as much. I didn't enjoy it as much as the SNES version, but maybe because I've played the SNES version for so much.
Yeah, I think it goes to what is in your era, isn't it? What you remember the most. Like if you ask somebody now, they probably say, "Oh, the Switch version's amazing," whereas we remember the older versions.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's about how you connect to games, and that's something we'll all be sort of pigeonholed with, I think, with what era you're in. I mean, games like Speedball 2 and Stunt Car Racer, wouldn't hold any value to a lot of people because it's irrelevant. So, like I say, we're slowly moving forward, and generations are coming on, and they won't get involved with that. But that's why I like to get my son involved with old gaming, because he can see where the roots are. It's almost like in 10, 15, 20 years' time, there might even be a course where you'd learn about at school about how things progress to where we are now, because it is an important part of history, something we can't deny. Yeah, so it might be something worth educating.
Definitely, that's a good point. It will, some of it will move out of computers into history, because it will be history, won't it? When you think like the 80s are like 40 years ago now, which sounds crazy.
That's so scary. Even the year 2000 was 21 years ago.
I know.
What is that about?
I can remember the Y2K bug. Everybody thought everything was going to explode.
Yeah, everyone's getting these rogue companies in to sort the computers out ready for the Y2K bug. We thought aeroplanes were going to fall out of the sky. Well, that never happened.
So we think. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you like your other things as well, because you can see behind you you've got a 5-foot turtle and also a Terminator. So do you like collecting other bits and bobs as well?
I do. It's not like film memorabilia or anything like that. It's just things. I see something that I don't need, but I want a lot, and it's dead hard not to buy that thing. And I have to draw the line a lot when it comes to cost, but I couldn't turn down the Terminator because it was a direct cast from the skull from the original film. It's the most arcade perfect. Got games on the brain. It's the most perfect copy you could get of the one that was used in the film. The teeth and everything are absolutely spot on. So how many times you get offered to buy something like that? I had to get it. It cost a fair bit of money, but it gets a lot of attention. But I just see little things. I mean, the turtle behind me, it was never released in the UK. It was a US only at Target, which is a popular shop in America. It didn't cost a lot in America, but it's worth a bit more over here because someone obviously had to ship it over to the UK, and it's just nice having something like that in the background, and just little parts of your childhood or things that are interesting or a talking point. I'm really into the Back to the Future film, so I've got a Mr. Fusion in the background, which was made from a coffee grinder, which was originally done in the film as well. So that's like a replica, and still, it's nice having someone come around your house and go, "Oh my God, look at this!" Blah blah blah. Yeah. But I don't know. Some people might perceive it as a bit sad. I don't know. It's my little corner of happiness. So, do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I always laugh because obviously we talk on Facebook and stuff, and when you put "guess what I found," you think, "Oh my God, what's he going to put up?" Like the GTI chair, and then the Terminator, and a turtle, and fruit machine background.
I've tried to settle down a little bit recently because I still see things. I think, do I need to have this? Like I keep looking at penny pushers, you know, from like the arcades at the seaside when you put the 2 pences in. Having one of them in the corner and sit down arcade machines and things like that, but you have to rein it in one day because the whole house is going to end up being some sort of home arcade bar situation. I just... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I keep expecting to come, when we can come back to your house, to see a Sega Rally 4-player in corner or something. Because I know
that'd be nice.
Well. Yeah.
See, ironically, the bigger ones sell for a lot cheaper because no one's got no space for them. But
yeah.
I mean, obviously, my partner wants to get pinball machine, but we're running out of room now. But I see a lot of things. I think. I mean, even today I was looking at Dodgem cars that are out of service to make a really good sort of seat sort of thing. But can I get it through the door? I don't know.
So when we finally can come round, and we're not sat on a settee, but we're all sat in Dodgems.
Dodgems, yeah. Waiting for the lights to come on so we can all just start driving around and bashing off each other.
Just going to the
It's not things like that. I like the idea of owning something that you would probably never see in a house. More of like an arcade or an amusement park. I mean, I got offered a log flume from the American Adventure about 10 years ago, and I turned it down. Because I thought someone's going to nick it, because I can't bring it in the house. Just little things like that. I love the idea of owning something that wasn't purposely built to be consumed as something that would be a household object.
Yeah.
That just interests me. I've always been like that.
You should have got the log flume. That'd be ace. What
Well,
happened when you get a log flume in your front garden?
They used it. They had it in their garden. They put plant pots in it. It's like a planter. I just think about all the people that would have sat in that and enjoyed the thrill of the American adventure, which is now gone.
Yeah.
What a brilliant thing to own. And it's the same with my arcade cab. It wasn't originally an arcade machine. It was a quiz machine. It's got heritage. It was used at some point. Do you know what I mean? It's just, I like that idea. Just having something it's had a life and it's seen a lot of things. So
we've had this conversation before, haven't we? When we've been in pub, we seem to spend a lot of time in the pub when they were open. About
not anymore.
if only machines could tell their story and
The stories, yeah.
I wonder where it was been and what its life was like, and obviously
and how it, yeah. I mean, even when it goes back to when you buy a retro console, like, I mean, I picked up that Mega Drive for 20 quid or something, but how many households that been through? I mean, that Christmas morning when it was opened up in its pristine packaging and the faces on the kids, you've got to think about that had a lifespan and it's still continuing now and getting looked after. And it'd be amazing if you could just draw into that history and what it's experienced.
Yeah, I totally agree. So unfortunately, it's something that you can't, because I think you said before, wouldn't it be spooky if you ended up owning something that you owned prior, but you just didn't realise?
Well, my brother's done that before because obviously he's in the Amiga realm and he's bought bulk discs that have got our handwriting on some of the discs. They've come back. Can't get rid of them.
Come back to roost.
Yeah. But you're right, though. It'd be funny if you owned something twice and never realised. Obviously, it's doubtful. But
so, what is your next target purchases in consoles? Computer, is there one, or is it just you've just pick up as of when?
No, I have slowed down on buying things because the room, and I do acknowledge the fact that I don't have time to play half of these things at the moment. But it's just nice to own them. I mean, a lot of it's investment as well. But then when the bubble bursts, but I'm thinking it's the Dreamcast next because I just want to play Crazy Taxi on it.
Good choice, Dreamcast.
Yeah, I mean it's an obvious one to buy, and I don't own it. I've got a Saturn, I just don't have a Dreamcast, and I don't have an N64 either, which is an odd one.
Well,
but they don't translate very well on modern tellies, so it would have to be straight on the CRT. But I think the Dreamcast next. I think.
The Dreamcast, you used to be able to pick them up for like 10 quid, but I think they've got a price now.
And I'm quite specific if they've got that, if they've like yellowed or discoloration and things like that. I mean, my SNES looks like it's brand new, but you see so many SNESs like that coffee colour. It's the same with the Amigas though. They all went like that, the pigment in the plastic. But I wouldn't buy a Dreamcast that looked like it was off colour or anything like that. I'd be quite specific, but I will probably get one, but I'm not desperate to get one. I've got enough to play with at the moment, and recently getting coin ops on the PC as well. That's added to my gameplay. So,
to be honest, with the coin op, well, I know we've played online with using Parsec. That has reignited my passion for the arcade stuff. Because playing Gauntlet like we did the other night was just brilliant.
Yeah,
it's just amazing.
So just to tell everyone at home who are watching, what we do is we hook up basically our PCs over the internet, and Dave is the actual the provider, if you like, the server, and then we play online games. Often there's three of us playing as well, so it's quite an interesting concept as well, especially with how lockdowns come out and stuff. You don't have to have the retro nights that we used to have, because it was quite a frequent thing at one point. Now we can have retro nights over the internet and still enjoy gaming and have obviously the verbal conversation, as Dave does his streams as well. I mean, we play Daytona, don't we? The arcade.
Yeah, Daytona.
Player. That's insane doing that. When did I ever think in my life we were going to be doing that? Playing the arcade version of Daytona 3-player over the internet and also streaming it live.
Yeah. Well, you never thought that arcade was one of those arcades you thought would never get a home release because it was so far ahead of what was available in the home. It was only when like the PlayStation came out and Ridge Racer was there, you thought, wow, this is mind blowing.
We can do this now, yeah. Can you remember walking into a big carpeted arcade at the seaside and seeing that gem in the corner, which would be Daytona or Ridge Racer or Radmobile, and all the loud sounds and the bassy music and stuff? That was a big thing for me, that was. And there were a lot of people standing around watching people playing and things like that. And that's time's gone now, I think, really.
It's funny because I had this exact conversation with somebody the other day about that arcade feeling. It's not just about the games, it's everything. It's walking in with the fluorescent floor and the smell and the music, the sound, all of them
sounds together. And machines paying out money and things like that.
Yeah. And specific arcade games like Operation Wolves, bless you, playing version 2, you know what I mean? And all them. And
yeah, they're all designed to bring you in.
Yeah. I miss those times. I do miss those times because you don't get.
I mean,
go to an arcade now and it's all ticket machines and fruit machines and that's it.
I hate that. I hate the ticket machine. The whole thing. Get these rubbish prizes. Just that's their way of like making money now. The coin guzzlers are now about getting tickets. But sometimes, like drawing back to my setup, if I put everything on in the background, including whatever's on the CRT, and have all the different musics and sounds, it does sound like an arcade. Yeah. Like all the loading screens and the speech and stuff like that. And that's something like you used to walk into and just your eyes were just looking everywhere, looking for that arcade machine you want to play with, or the one that no one's on at the moment you quickly get to.
And that was like that when we went to the show, weren't it? Where you'd see an arcade game, but there was somebody on it thinking, hurry up, I would never go on that.
Yeah, get off!
Oh, it's been nice chatting to you anyway, Andy.
It has. I mean, we used to have a lot of these conversations. Obviously, with things changing over the last year, it's a bit more fragmented, but it was a good catch up. I hope people enjoy what I've had to say and my angle on how I feel about retro. So,
one last question: what is it like being beaten by your partner all the time now?
It's annoying because I've known her for a long time, and it was through different scenes because we're both big into car scene. And I knew her really well, but I didn't know that she had the side of her where she used to go to LAN parties. She used to get on a train with her PC to go to a LAN party and have a weekend playing Unreal Tournament and being good at it. So, obviously, we had a period of time where we weren't together, and we got together, and obviously she realised she walked into a den of retro craziness. Well, she's not going to like any of these games, and she literally kicks my arse at most of them.
Well, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, mate, honestly.
Next time on a Retro Ramble.
And our artistic credibility is growing, but we hadn't made that much money. So then you hit another phase where, hang on, we've had 3 #1 games, but we're living like, okay, we've both got living in small houses and paying mortgages, and we live in hand to mouth, and we're doing all right, we're surviving.
Yeah.
But that's it, and it's like, hang on, we've got 3 #1 games, and that's all.
I would just like to say a big thank you to all the special guests who took the time out of their busy schedules to appear on Retro Ramble. It is really much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you for watching this episode of a Retro Ramble with. All links to the special guest channel can be found in the description below this video. If you enjoyed watching, then please like and subscribe and click the bell notification icon to be informed of when the next episode is uploaded.